bid, which is 169, I think.
169.
Yes.
Yeah.
All the data that we've got shows there really isn't a speeding problem near the zebra crossing or any part of the Potton Road between the shop and the crossroads. The huge speeding problem is down at Church End, as you know. So I can't quite work out why the zebra crossing was chosen for the raised platform there. The survey showed that it was like 7th on the list, I think, of priorities, with about half the number of votes, if you like to call them, as opposed to the first few on there. So I'd just like to make a comment that I don't think it's a good use of money there. It's not a problem, and we've taken lots of readings of speed there. The police tend to camp down at Church End because they know that's the problem. So I would just ask that perhaps we might look at focusing on speed reduction. I've seen a lot of people asked about speed reduction on Potton Road, but didn't specify where, that we focus on where the speeding problem really is, not where it isn't.
Thank you, Andy. Any other? Was it just one?
Sorry?
One?
No, sorry, I was going to say fireworks are brilliant. Yeah, again, I know we've just discussed it, it's not on the agenda, so I couldn't really. But no, really good, so well done, everybody.
Ian, or are we going to save you to come into the conversation green open space? Yeah, we'll do that. Thank you. Doug, nice to see you.
Evening all, nice to be here again, thank you very much. A few things to report. We're getting to that time of the year where the councils, including of course yourselves, are all considering finance. You need to start early on that. Obviously, I don't know if Claire said you any information on the district at all, but it'll follow very much on what's happening in the county. What you normally do is this time of year you sit down and work out, what money you need to spend to keep your services roughly where you want them to be. If you treat that as your household income and expenditure, if you've got a certain amount coming in, you decide what your priorities are and how you're going to spend it. If you've had a good year, you put money in your savings, which becomes the council reserves. If you have a bad year, you might need to tuck into them a bit. Capital expenditure is a different proposition altogether, because that's raised from different areas and has to be used for specific projects. So, for example, if you have a multi-million-pound capital project that doesn't go ahead, we can't unfortunately then decide we're going to spend it on social services, etc. So, it's quite important to get those right. The big problem we've got this year is doing the household analogy. It's the same problem we've all got, i.e., the bills are all going up, whether we like it or not. The cost of fuel for running the council's vehicles is going up. The cost of fuel for all the buildings that we run and all the various services, and there is also a great deal of pressure on salaries at the minute for two reasons. Number one, because everyone feels that they need a pay increase just to keep still, and the second is, I've reported to you before, across the country there seems to be a shortage of officers at all levels of council. So this is outbidding to keep the ones you've got, and hopefully get ones in from elsewhere. So it's difficult times at the minute, and I think the difficulty is when the administration were looking at what they were going to do for next year, which they started doing in all honesty about February of this year. We're in a very different world. We didn't have inflation at the level it was at now. We didn't have the fuel bills at the level that now. So it's very difficult for them. It's very easy for me to sit here and say, oh, they're going to do this, that, and the other. But I do appreciate they do have a difficult problem. They're going to have to make some very difficult decisions, which doesn't help the priorities I've got. And we quite regularly report that in the area that I represent, I think I'm fortunate. We do have areas, and we do have a few people who are socially deprived and do need help from the councils. And things like if they've got children with special needs in the school and etc. So we do have those, and they do come to me regularly, and I do get people that I wouldn't report back to, who, say for example, having trouble in social housing because they've got bad neighbours who need to be either become not bad neighbours or move somewhere else, and I get that sort of workload on the go regularly from both sides of the council. So there's stuff there, but the major thing is highways around here, and it's two things really. Number one, the budgets are not particularly generous at the moment. They're not going to be any more generous next year. The shortage of officers does cause problems, and I've been I'd like to say working with Andy, but been trying to resolve a few things, and sometimes just getting officer time to actually do these things is difficult. And once we do that, we can get them resolved. But there is a problem there, and it's not going to get any easier. And you know, and that's right across the piece, as it were. So, as I say, the budget setting is going to make things difficult. There is a pot of money available, just if anyone knows of anyone who does need any special help. There are various funds that can be applied for via various local groups, you know, for those people who really are in desperate straits. And I can always, if the council knows of anyone who needs those, I can give you the contact details for those. You know, it's not for me to get in contact with, or even for you really, but you know, to put the two people sides in contact with one another. So it's important to get that right. And there is one upside on the highways, which I think will actually help, especially with the discussion like where Andy's just introduced something and various others. The LHI fund is going to be split going forward. You may have heard, into two distinct pots. We discussed at highways last week how we're going to do that. And I think the intention very much is to get together a list of the two sides. So there'll be the normal LHI things like, for example, the weight restrictions with the lorries here and various other bits of structure things, and also a totally separate one for the 20 mile an hour limits. The idea is effectively any parish that applies for them will be able to go ahead subject to funding, and that's where the problem lies, because you can make your list of every parish in the county and put them all in order, and actually, unless there's a priority listing of some way, it doesn't actually move the situation on. It was originally pitched up as if you want it, you can have it, and now it's subject to finance. So I think we need to look at that carefully. But it does mean if there are villages and parishes and even parts of towns that come forward that actually need that help, and you know, it's available, that will be a push for. What's been agreed at the county at the minute, I think is quite a good idea, is that the county should get a list of all the parishes in the whole county that actually want to do the work, and then roll it into one multi-packet and go to the combined authority mayor and say to Dr. Nick, your job is to get capital expenditure, rather than this is 200 separate schemes. This is a scheme for the whole county that's going to cost X million, and try to do it in one hit. So that's what we've agreed we're going to try and do, and I thought that was actually, so I'd like to say it was my idea, but it wasn't, it was someone else's, but I actually thought it was a good idea, rather than trying to fight these little, you know, 1,500 quid there, 1,500 quid there. We tackle those 15s and go there and say to Dr. Nick, it's a capital programme, go to the government, because that's part of his role, is to actually get those funds for capital projects. And that's it really. As I say, the finances around the budget's the main thing we're working forward on. If you've got any questions on anything at all, write to Claire and she'll give you the answers on them. but I don't know if she was planning to be here tonight, just separately.
She hasn't. She isn't. She's sent her apologies. We've got an email from her.
Yeah, no, I know she was doing finance training at HDC. Funny enough, was mentioning that, so I was aware that she might have trouble getting here. So
I've got a question for you.
Yeah, of course.
On the 20 mile an hour thing,
Yes.
there's been a number of projects signed off, haven't there?
Yes.
11 villages or so.
Yeah.
So is that an initial trial?
I think so. I think that's the idea of it. They want to see whether those can be brought forward and worked, and then actually roll the big plan behind it.
Okay.
So I think at the meeting, the way it came forward is those ones were ready to go, rather than hold those up. If the funding was there for those out of the current LHI, which there is, roll those forward and then bring all the other groups behind them.
So as a parish, we shouldn't submit an LHI for 20 mile an hour. We should go and make representations to highways and say we would want to be.
But that's it. The LHI 20 mile an hour offshoot is where you should put the bid in, once they've established how that's going to happen. But that's the idea. So you know, there's two distinct groups working rather than all going into one. And to be fair, a lot of the LHI was getting diluted by 20 mile an hour bids, especially from the city. So I think it would be better to have them separate. So that's the way you'll do it, and you'll be able to do both, of course. Whereas at the moment you can only do an LHI bid, which could be a 20 mile an hour zone. You can now effectively go for both if you want to.
Both what?
Well, the LHI.
Yeah. And the offshoot.
And the offshoot.
Yeah.
So,
fine. Yeah.
Yeah. There we go.
Good. Thank you. And the HGV ban is working lovely.
Yeah, I think
there's a few rogues, but
yeah, there's a few bits we're trying to sort out.
20 a day, up to 20 a day.
Is there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've written to 370 different separate companies that have infringed so far.
It reduced.
Yeah, it has reduced a huge amount, but
we've still got the roads to be sorting out.
Yeah.
And Andy's contacting me regularly. We're trying to get there, and we had a thing last week where we thought we were going nowhere fast, and suddenly Andy had a plethora of answers, didn't you? Which you know,
For the which?
So it's getting there.
For what part?
Pardon?
The answers for what part? When you say before you're going nowhere, but suddenly Andy came up with a plethora of answers.
Oh yeah, no, it's just to do with Andy was asking the officers to respond to certain things, and I was as well. I wanted to do, and was there an answer to the rogues that were there and how we could deal with them?
Yeah.
And it was like a logjam. We were putting in stuff in, and there was no answers, and then suddenly there obviously was a logjam because we got them all at once, more or less, didn't we?
Yeah, both Doug and I were trying to get an answer out of the highways and getting absolutely no response at all. So even Doug, who's sort of their boss in some respect, couldn't. And then it opened up for, I don't know quite what reason, I don't know if you put a bit of pressure in there.
Well, you thought I had, I have to admit, I'm not sure I had.
It was all about like this. So a quick, sorry, I know digress. A quick one is the signage that they missed on the A4, the 1307 as it is now, which they promised 3 months ago they were going to fix and still haven't. Finally came back and said, actually, we're not quite sure whether that road has been handed over by Highways Authority yet, and it's council owned. So they're haggling with us who owns the road and therefore who should put the sign up. That's one. Other signage is the big problem.
Yeah.
There are operators that point blank refuse to believe it is a 7.5 ton limit. So Karen's been very good writing to these companies and saying, look, it is. I put the bloody thing in place.
Yeah.
You know, please take note of this. So they're being a bit more responsive now, but still a way to go.
Let's get there.
Yeah.
Good, thank you. And thank you again for your efforts on that. Brilliant. Okay, do you want to do Claire's bit,
Yeah, can do.
please?
The District Councillor Claire Tevins submitted a written report. She states that the draft Market Town master plans are currently open for consultation, and there's a link, it will be in the minutes, for submitting your feedback. The Greater Cambridge Sustainable Travel Zone consultation is open and is actually later on the agenda as well. The climate strategy, District Council has adopted a climate strategy that acknowledges the personal and financial impact of climate change on Huntingdonshire's most disadvantaged residents. As local bus routes come under threat, council leaders will also advocate for more robust, affordable public transport that connects employees with work, links students to education and reduces carbon emissions. Huntingdonshire District Council has agreed to set up a warm spaces network across the district in light of the cost of living crisis, and there'll be a link in the minutes. The Wellbeing Project, working with recognised local community groups, they've launched the Health Inequalities Project to improve health and wellbeing across the district, which is also later on the agenda. And the District Council has relaunched its pre-application planning advice service to allow you to access planning advice before submitting planning applications. And again, there'll be a link in the minutes.
That's Claire's report.
And that's Claire's report.
Thank you very much. Right, okay, so now we will close the open session of the meeting and go back to the agenda. First item is agreeing some minutes of the last meeting, 3rd of October. Everybody's ready? Happy with them? So I will propose that we agree those minutes. Seconded, all those in favour? Good point, well made. There was an extraordinary parish council meeting on Monday the 10th of October. And if nobody's got any queries about those minutes, I would propose that we accept those. That's been seconded by Heather, all those in favour? And then there was a planning meeting on the 10th of October, which I did have and I would propose that the planning meeting was, there was me, John, Rob and Sarah were at that meeting, so I propose that those minutes are agreed. Lots of people, and we're all in favour. Lots of people seconding, and we're all in favour. Thank you. Right, now it's over to you, Nicola. Clerk's report, matters arising from last meeting.
So I have received reports that metal detectorists have been digging across the green, including the cricket outfield and square and around the pavilion. The turf has been badly replaced and now presents a trip hazard, so parishioners are urged to take care when walking. This has also been published on the website and Facebook page. The metal detectorists are claiming that they have the permission of the council when confronted. However, this is not the case. As their actions constitute criminal to the police, and I have a crime number which has been supplemented by some photos received, but if you have any further evidence of the perpetrators, particularly video, please pass that information to me. The district valuer visited the site at Manor Farm last week with respect to the easements, and his report was expected within 3 to 4 weeks. I attended the online GDPR training through the SLCC. I've carried out a data audit and produced a record of processing activities for the council. I have been corresponding with the Huntingdonshire Archives regarding depositing both the pages from the condolence books and also the historical completed minute books that I currently hold back to 1983. I've actually got an appointment there now later this month. A letter of condolence was sent to the King in care of his private secretary. An application was submitted to the National Lottery Awards for All Fund for the table tennis table. I haven't had a response back yet. After the recent heavy rains, a parishioner submitted photographs showing the standing water on Gravely Way, which took 2 hours to drain after the rain had stopped. I've emailed that through to the National Highways Engineer to ask what they can do to resolve this. The interest rate on the savings account has increased from 0.65 to 0.95% effective from the 23rd of September. Obviously, I'm expecting another increase after the recent base rate rise. And as Doug mentioned, the County Council are working on a new 20-mile-an-hour limit application process, and that will be on a future agenda once we get the report back from the Highways and Transport Committee. The Jubilee COPS has been submitted and approved as part of the Queen's Green Canopy project and uploaded to their map. And the County Council has carried out some work to a couple of the bridges across the green, and despite assurances that they would be repaired with like-for-like materials, they've been repaired with tannalised software instead of I'm in correspondence with the County Council regarding this.
That time's up. Meeting over.
That's it, meeting done. Well, and that is my report.
Thank you. And delegated, so that's 163. 164 is to review and ratify the decisions made under the scheme of delegation. I can read these. So the Christmas lights are going to go up, put up by the maintenance person, plus volunteers on the 27th of November, and they'll be switched on in coordination with the Village Hall Management Committee. And a report was made to the police regarding damage caused by the metal detectorists on the green. Discussed with Ian Stott and Councillor Peter Dillon.
What's up to?
You did. You did. And that, so we need to ratify those. I propose that we ratify those decisions. Seconded, all those in favour? Thank you. Now the next item is the Green Open Spaces report, to receive a verbal report from the Green Open Spaces Working Group. And do I invite Green Open Spaces Working Group Officer Ian Stott to present that report? Are you doing the report? I wasn't at the meeting.
Probably hasn't got a copy of what I've written down.
Oh, okay. Well, do you want to do the report then?
So, well, it's just
That's a relief.
the points that we discussed. So the memorial trees have been agreed for the far corner of the wilderness and also near the corner of the High Street opposite the Manor House, I've written down, or the other one. Sort of opposite.
What memorial trees?
So these are for 2 parishioners, so Ian has worked with them to set where they would like memorial trees to be planted. So we discourage memorial benches, but allow memorial trees to be planted. And they then go on the tree report. We've got a tree inventory that shows where all the trees are.
Choose the type of tree.
It tends to be, they're given a choice of
Right.
2 or 3 that would
So they all.
do. Yeah, it's not going to. You're not going to get
trees.
some like a monkey puzzle tree in the middle of the green or something random. So yeah, sorry.
And does every parish, does every parishioner have the right to put a tree in the village? How does it work? I've never heard of it before.
We discussed
They
it.
tend to. Yeah, we have discussed
Yeah.
memorial. Every time there's been a memorial tree planted, it's come in the verbal report. But yeah, they don't get planted very often. The last one went in the corner of the wilderness as well. But they tend to come to me and say, well, most times I get asked for a bench, and I have to go back and say, no, we don't allow benches. However, I can offer you a memorial tree, and then
often
Ian
right.
and myself, or Ian and the parishioner, depending on who is asking and how comfortable they are. We'll go and we'll have a wander around the green with the parishioner report to say, you could plant it here or you could plant it there, and you can have this kind of tree or that kind of tree.
And are there rules about what you hang on the tree?
What you...
Hang
mean
on
plaque?
the tree.
Do you mean a plaque?
Well, either a plaque or other ornaments.
We don't allow plaques, as in like putting in the ground, but I am aware that a parishioner is choosing to hang ornaments in a tree. And there are no rules in the open spaces management document about hanging ornaments.
Is that a memorial tree?
Yes.
Perhaps we can have that on the future meeting.
You're welcome to email me with a future motion. So there is also now a secondary wilderness entrance via the Calder Wilderness Edge. As you're going in the Wilderness Gate, you'll notice that there's been vehicles driving across the culvert into Wilderness Edge and then crossing into the wilderness that way. So the intention is to use one of the larger pieces of fallen oak to block this access. Obviously it needs to be a piece that's large enough that it can't be moved by a couple of chaps, which is why the bigger piece has been selected. And the neighbours there have been consulted and they're happy for this to proceed.
So that's the Green Open Spaces Working Group report, and then there's a couple of other items that have come up since. One is to apply for a Woodland Trust for a free tree pack to implant with the Jubilee Copse to support the development of these trees. I'm looking at you, Ian, at this point, if you wanted to interject.
Can do. I've discussed it with our 3 tree surgeons, and all 3 were of the opinion that if we were to interplant, it would help establish those trees. Basically, it's something that I should have thought of this time last year before we got them in, so apologies on that score. But basically, you have nurse trees in place. It's not just wind protection or anything like that. It's also to encourage the rhizobium, which is the root network, and the fungi that interlink the root networks, and that encourages the trees to grow a lot quicker. If you look at the oak that's in the corner of the wilderness, if we look at it from here, it's sort of the left-hand corner. It's a small oak about this big. It's been there 5 years and it's grown all of about 11.5 inches in those 5 years. The point that was made to me was that if that had been interplanted, that would probably be a good metre higher than it is now. So that's where we're coming from with that.
I think my only concern when I looked at the plants was that there were things like hawthorn listed. I'm just a bit concerned with kids and stuff having spiked plants, or whether there might be a problem.
Right.
Whether we can, I mean, those could always be planted somewhere else.
Yeah. I mean, we could be selective with those and put them where perhaps there's less youngsters.
Against the ditches.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I suppose the contrary point would be that they've been in English villages for millennia. Without, I mean, I can't think of it. You know,
It was just the location of them, because kids tend to play in around trees and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
When they grow into proper trees though, they're not going to be spiked by them. It's when they're hedges that
Yeah.
they get
And
spiked.
we've got hawthorns
Slow.
around the green moat, haven't we? We certainly removed a couple up by the church, up on the side, and to thin them out to allow the others to grow a bit better. So,
We had a quick look at the Woodland Trust because it's the same organisation we use for the fencing in the community garden. The plants are only about that
That's
high,
right.
but they need that green plastic coil going all the way around them. And I thought when we planted the canopy that the idea was that people would be able to walk through them and sort of meander their way. And if we put extra trees or bushes in, that's not going to be possible, is it?
If I may, the whole idea is that you will plant these, and perhaps within about 4 or 5 years you will start to thin them out. So it's all about managing it, and hopefully in 50, 60 years' time, then all these interplanted species will be gone by then. So it's just an interim measure.
To try and encourage those.
Is it encouraging competition? Is that the
Not so much
No?
really. No.
Just a networking?
Yeah, yeah.
10 trees, wasn't it, you planted?
We put 11 in.
Oh, you put it.
Yeah.
I was late.
Yeah. Well, there's one unit, and there's 105 in this pack that we're looking at. It's recommended that's for about 4 tennis courts in size. So when you consider the trees that are just around the corner into the wilderness, as well as those that we've got there currently, and also the one that we're hoping to put, that we mentioned earlier on, the new ones, etc., they will soon get lost in there.
Good. Plant more trees. More and more. So do you want us to vote on number 165.1 to receive further report?
You can do, yeah.
No, do you want us to?
You don't have to.
Right. Number 162 is to consider whether to apply to the Woodland Trust for a free tree pack. So I think we need to agree
We
on
need to
that.
vote on that.
Yeah.
But is there a cost as well of these tree guards?
It's
That's-
unclear as to whether they're included in the pack. Yeah, it wasn't very clear on the website whether they were included or not. It also says canes and guards will be required.
Canes are thinner than a bamboo cane, very
There are
flimsy.
plenty of
Trees are
empty guards on the way to St Ives.
It's true. You can't vote on that side of it in the fact that that bit's not on the agenda. What the cost if that's not on the agenda.
So the
So you haven't got purchase. You've got apply for the tree pack on the agenda. So that's what you can vote on.
Okay, so the proposal is to consider whether to apply to the Woodland Trust for a free tree pack to interplant with a Jubilee copse to support development of these trees. I propose that. So second, all those in favour? Right, against? Or abstaining? Abstain. One abstention.
Should we record the
Okay?
Sorry, could we just pause while I...
Yeah.
So
Good.
the proposer was Peter.
Yeah.
Seconder was
Sarah.
Okay.
Yep. But that's without a dog, just for interest. Right, the next item is to consider urgent tree work to the oaks in the wilderness, cost estimate £880. Because we've had some recent tree damage, and although two very kind-hearted parishioners were out there on Saturday morning, chopping and cutting back parts of them, they couldn't obviously do the big bits because it would be too dangerous. So, £880, yes, to sort out the bit that's lashed up to another tree.
Do you want me to just
Please,
explain a
interject.
little?
Yes.
That £880 was based on the one quote that I had when we met last Wednesday evening. You may notice that that probably relates to contractor C on the chart that you've got in front of you. Since then, we've had another couple of quotations come through, and as you can see, I've highlighted one of those in green, and that is the one that I would like to suggest that we go for. And that is
250, 250 and 125.
yeah.
and another 25 further down. Oh,
Well,
no, that's separate.
that's-
Those are separate, aren't
Yeah,
they?
yeah. That's just to show how they split
Yeah.
between the three contractors will be eventually.
Then when we get to the next item, the point 5, which is to review tree report and agree the proposed tree works. Item 2 on your list of there, the 3 items there are the damaged oaks
Correct.
on the list.
You'll see they are priority A,
Yes,
which the key tells us is immediate action.
yeah. So 625,
Yeah.
£625 is the proposed cost. So there we go. I propose, first of all, has anybody got a comment?
Is your recommendation purely on the price, or is there some sort of qualitative element to the work that they were indicating is going to be?
Basically, the 3 people who we've approached, we have used them for a number of years. And we have found all 3 of them to work to a pretty high standard. I think that's the best answer I can give.
So nothing to separate really on that basis.
No, okay. We split it, tend to split work between the contractors because they all do a great job. And there's one of them knows every tree in the village now, I would imagine.
Yes.
He's been doing the tree survey review for years and years.
Yes.
So the proposal is to get the urgent tree work done at a cost of £625. I'd like to propose that. Have a seconded, all those in favour? Yeah. That's that done. The next item on the agenda, and we'll come back to trees, won't we, is daffodils. There's a note about daffodils somewhere. It's on this page. So this was a previous request which was put to the Green Open Spaces Committee. This was to plant some daffodils along the eastern wall of the churchyard. This has been considered by the Green Open Spaces Committee and agreed. Cost is £38 plus VAT. Obviously you get the VAT back as a parish council. I think there's money because the trees are costing less, so there's 38 quid somewhere floating around. So, anybody got any comments about invasive daffodils? I mean, about daffodils.
Does it really cost £38? How many daffodils are you getting?
That's for a sack of daffodils.
Because they do spread.
Okay.
It's quite a long wall though.
It's already got some daffodils in them.
I think they're all gone. I haven't seen any daffodils come up there for some
That's
time.
a lot on the wall, put some grass coming towards it.
There are some.
You drive into the
There are
village.
some on the verge, but not against the church wall, which is where we're talking about.
Just one wall or all walls?
I only recall them being on the eastern wall.
Which is the east wall, she said?
Opposite the west wall.
From
So they'll be down, it should be
me
from
towards the
church.
lich gate.
It's south facing the church. So if you approach it on church end, that's the south side of the church. Because the church is usually east-west, isn't it? So it's
So it's
So
the
it's
lich
south.
gate wall.
Right.
Oh, the lich gate wall.
The lich
Yes.
gate wall.
Yeah, that's easy.
Okay. So there are daffodils on the south facing wall, which is what I was thinking about. Okay, I correct myself. Yeah, there probably are very many left there. It's a bit shady too.
Is there any reason for just specifying the east wall?
Just from the history that that's where there were daffodils.
Because I think in the email from the parishioner, it just says all around the church. Church wall was completely surrounded with them.
But we're saying there are some on other walls.
There are some.
I mean, I've
Sorry,
got-
my point is, if we buy a sack and we've got loads left over, can we just keep going round the other sort of
Potentially, you could amend the motion to all walls of the churchyard.
All walls and two sacks.
Can I just ask one question? Because I absolutely know nothing against planted daffodils, it's lovely, but the church wall is not safe.
Good point. I thought it had been repaired.
In one place.
In one place. Okay. So, have we actually spoken to the church about planting daffodils against their wall? No.
The wall is the churchyard, the ground before it is.
Yeah, but if we're planting something against which might potentially cause damage to their wall, should we not speak and agree to the church, with the church first of all? I personally, that's what I would think we
Can
would
we
do. As a
pass on the motion number with the proviso that we not check with
It's
the
not on the
church first?
agenda. So we can't. So I would propose that this item is bounced to the next meeting on the basis that we will contact the church and we will ask them if they're happy for us to plant daffodils against their wall, because we're not sure what the integrity of the wall is. And then we can decide whether we're going to plant them. Because if the church come back and say, no, thank you, we won't have spent £38, and we'll be at least working in liaison with another organisation within the village. Any
Well,
comments?
could people have a look around at the area on Church End leading up to the south face of the church, which makes a big impact as you're driving into the village. There's possibly scope for putting lots of daffodils in that area, not necessarily along the church wall, but in that approach to the church. I think that would look lovely. But of course that does depend on... But if you don't mow it assiduously, in the early spring you let the daffodil bulbs die down, even if they're cut, they will come back.
The issue with that piece of land is that you can't get big enough equipment on there to deal with particularly long grass. So the one year it was that the hay cut was taken on that land with the tractor, and because of where the tile drain crosses the land and the brook underneath, the land is too soft, and the tractor nearly got so he said never take it on there again. So the only thing you've got is the ride-on mower, which obviously can't cope with the grass when it gets too long.
I withdraw my suggestion.
So,
Can I propose that we do proceed with the daffodils and then pragmatically let the church know that that's the plan, and if there's an issue, they can come back to us for the next meeting. Because that's
the
what's on
proposal on the agenda is to agree to plant daffodils alongside the eastern wall of the churchyard. Cost £38 plus that. It
I would
doesn't.
only say from a practical point of view that if you want the daffodils to flower, it should be planted within the next couple of weeks.
And can we add a proviso to that?
You can amend the motion.
Okay. We'll amend the motion, if that's all right, to say after discussion and agreement with the church.
Yeah.
So you vote on the amendment and then you vote on the motion.
I propose there's an amendment to the motion to include the proviso that we actually ask the church whether they're happy to do it. That's been seconded by Claire. All those in favour of that amendment?
Sorry, is it possible we just drop the word east as well? Just to allow
That's it. That'll be a second amendment, so you vote on it as a separate amendment.
So
The
yes,
second
please.
amendment is
Hang on,
to...
sorry, did you vote on that
Yeah, everybody.
first amendment?
Everybody now has agreed. The second amendment is that we drop the word eastern. Seconded. All those in favour? Yeah. And third is that we agree to plant daffodils subject to those two amendments. Seconded. All those in favour? Right.
And what about 2 bags of daffodils? Can we
That wasn't...
amend to that?
No, the amendment has to happen before the motion.
And we just voted.
It's plenty. It's plenty.
Plenty.
Even though I mentioned it.
Plenty.
It's plenty.
Okay.
And I would just,
And it's not in the budget.
although it won't be recorded, I would just state that I'm sure the community garden would be happy to plant the bulbs.
They'd also be happy to contribute some. I've got some spares.
You've been waiting to offload those, haven't you, Claire? Right, item 165 on of this extended agenda item is to review the tree report and agree proposed tree works. So, you have a spreadsheet of tree works. Thanks, Doug.
Thanks to you later. That's
So you have a list of tree works, and they, as usual, are prioritised. A, which is the work that needs to be done on the poor oaks that have suffered, And then there's items B and items C, which is 1. I'm not sure about item 10 on the list, the ash and 2 beaches. I'm going to ask parishioner Stott, or the parishioner, sorry. If those, what sort of priority the question mark has?
There is no priority because it's not yet been decided, as far as I'm aware, whether to pursue that project or not.
Oh, okay. So that might not come into...
No, it was just flagging up the fact that I had asked 2 of the contractors and there's a potential spend there.
So they're not in the totals?
No, no. Hence there's no colour to them.
And so that lot comes up to £2,460.
Including the, sorry, beg your pardon, Mr. Chairman, including the 625 that you've already approved.
Yes. So that's another £1,800 work. And it tells me in my supporting documents the amount remaining in the budget is 2635. And does that, because I know that tree work has got a little confused over financial year ends because things have been agreed, the invoices haven't come through, or the work's been delayed, and that 2635.
It's from this year's
Yeah.
budget. So again, what you could do, which you've done before, is at the end of the financial year, if you haven't spent it, you put it in an earmarked reserve for when those invoices come in.
So 2635 would in fact cover the 2460 for the total amount of these tree works.
Yes.
Right. So, any questions, ladies and gentlemen?
I would just like to comment what a great spreadsheet it is. It's really clear to someone like me that doesn't know all about these things as to how it was prioritised.
I agree.
The oak at Lichgate is called Brian. The one down at the churchyard is Ronald.
Because they've been in the village a long time.
Absolutely.
Heather.
I've got one question about number 7.
Yep.
Dismantle the upright dying stem to about 3 metres.
Yep.
Is that because it's still dying or it's going to have new life in it?
Yeah, if you walk along that bit outside 4 to 14 Gregory Way, you will see what we're trying to do is where those elms have been dying, if they still have some life in them, we've cut them off at about 3 metres to try and encourage there to be a bit of hedge for people there. And by and large that has worked out over the last few years. So it's rather than just blitzing it and there's a big gap, it gives them a bit of privacy.
Thank you.
Everybody happy? I propose we ask Ian to take forward getting all those items on the list done.
Okay.
Apart from obviously number 10.
Yeah.
Seconded by Heather, all in favour? Thank you very much, and thank you Ian again, because you put in a lot of time on this for us. Right, this item came... Oh no, hang on. So the next item is dredging. Dredging 1, which is to review the report from the Open Spaces Officer and consider it alongside the draft grant agreement for the watercourse maintenance grant, fund dredging, and consider whether to agree to sign this document. And the second part of this agenda item is to agree to instruct the contractor to spread the dredged materials cost TBC. Now, we had this on the agenda last month. Great work in getting the grant agreed to dredge the ponds, but then we found that, in fact, it didn't include disposal of the dredged material. Now, Ian has come up with a report, which I think is this report. It could be this report. No, it's this one. So, and we had a little bit more clarity with regard from another parishioner who advised us that the dredgings had previously been spread on the wilderness before. The dredging of Hilton Ponds document, is that Ian's document?
Yes.
Yeah. Would you like me to run through that? So it says 7 ponds, 4 of them are watercourses, grants applied for and approved to do 5 ponds, the Crossroads Pond, the Park Farm Pond, the Ware Kidman's Farm Pond and Reeves Ditch. And as well as dredging Kidman's Farm Pond, the work schedule allows for the digging of 2 metre cube silt trap. And although Reeves Ditch is not part of a watercourse, as you know, it sometimes has water going to it, but not that often, CCC accepted that currently there's a large silt deposit in this pond which will benefit from removal. And then there's a little bit about unfortunate times recently when there have been floods, and then flood mitigation measures undertaken with all 5 ponds were dredged in the 1990s. In the late 1990s, the Parish Council designed its own environmental management plan which allowed for more frequent and better management of the sides of watercourses to avoid blockages. That was cleaning out some of the overgrown bits and pieces, and is subject to constant review, and PC implements further improvements in the standard of management where appropriate. And the remit of the village maintenance person now includes keeping the watercourses in a good state of repair within the village boundary. I think we would have to just say there as well. Currently, watercourses appear to be coping, can't afford to leave them as they are, and I think this goes on to the bit that the ponds haven't been dredged since the 1990s, and there is a large build-up of silt in Gravely Way Pond. Looks pretty silty, and the Reeves Ditch, I haven't inspected the others. And we know that if there is, well, there seems to be a trend environmentally that we have heavier rainfall over shorter periods of time, intense rainfall. The grant from CCC covers the digging out of the silt in 5 ponds, removal of it from site, but not the disposal of it. And this is where we got to last month. So the PC has spent much time exploring different options for the disposal of the silt. To dispose of it through official channels would be very, very expensive, and we were quoted a figure of something like £400,000. Given that this grant is £35,000 or so. Yeah.
31,550 plus VAT.
Bit disproportionate. So that wasn't going to be an option. Approached several local farmers if they'd like it, and they've said no. As was said earlier, we have had confirmation that dredgings have been placed on the wilderness in the past. So, volume of dredgings for disposal. It's difficult to reliably estimate the volume of silt the ponds will yield. CCC have carried out a survey and worked out we'll need to dispose of 200 cubic metres of silt, which we discussed around the bonfire would be 2 lanes of a 100-metre running track at about this high. Just so you can visualise it. Because of the shape of the wilderness, it's difficult to estimate this area. The shape is approximately that of an equilateral triangle. Simple maths tells us this would roughly equate to nearly 1 hectare or 10,000 square metres. Thus, it would be a 2 centimetre covering if it was spread across the wilderness, and it could be spread more thinly if the entire grid were viewed. Then there's a make-up of the dredgings. The dredgings would probably consist of not just silt but other items as well, therefore need to go through the silt as it was tipped onto the ground to remove it. Perhaps you could ask those metal detectorists. We would also need to bear in mind the nutrient content of the dredgings. Although there would be some nitrate content, this would not be particularly high. Nitrogen is quite mobile in the soil water and is relatively short-lived in the soil. This explains why nitrogen is usually applied in 3 doses to winter wheat at different times within the crop cycle. I've been wondering why for years. The principal nutrient to consider would be phosphate. Phosphate is not a particularly mobile nutrient, and if applied at all to a crop, it is only applied when the crop is planted. The presence of phosphate in watercourses brings about the algae blooms we see each year in the Crossroads Pond. Phosphates lock onto particles of silt in the soil. Because they lock onto the silt particles, they tend to be released relatively slowly. In conclusion, it is correct to say that although the nutrient content of the dredgings would have some effect, it would be relatively minimal. Everybody clear on that? Or was there anything else?
It was such a clear report.
It was a great report.
It's very good.
Great report. So, Thank you, Ian. So there we go. Any questions? Everybody happy to go ahead with dredging and get
Are
them?
we absolutely clear that it's necessary? Has we had a second opinion to convince us it's a job that has to be done, rather than somebody telling us it should be done? I can see the answer to that is no.
I would say how it was formulated was feedback from parishioners who live nearby to the ponds, some of the ponds, was that they were concerned that there was a build-up of sludge in the bottom, which meant that when it rained heavily, there would be a flood. We had a flood down Gravely Way
2020.
Christmas.
2001. Christmas 2020.
Christmas.
Yeah, Christmas Eve.
With swimming lessons arranged by a parishioner. Fell into one of them.
Well, yes.
And so it was taken forward as part of the flood resilience plan, if you like, to see what could be done. And initially it was only going to be, I thought, Gravely Way pond, but it's expanded to be 5 ponds, which is great. Last done in the 1990s. I don't know, Claire, if the silt build-up is dangerous, but the good news is we don't have to pay for it.
So the
And also we get the silt trap, which will hopefully prevent it building up over time. Which I think is
the process that we've gone through to get to this stage is that we did walk around here with one of the flood resilience officers, and it's then had to go to a panel who have decided whether this is actually going to be of benefit to the village. And they came back, the county council, so it's county council officers of the Inclusive Environment Agency, and because they work in collaboration on this project. So they then reviewed the plan as to whether dredging would actually be of a benefit in the flood resilience.
I would
and
only simply
it's
say
still-
that I think it is possibly questionable, and if you had another expert in, they might have a different opinion. However, if then somebody else is paying for it, I go to not pursue it any
The
further.
panel were the ones that then suggested the silt trap being installed to future-proof this issue.
I'd also add that I think there's always a concern with dredging of damage to the wildlife within the ponds, but given what we've been through with the removal of the fish, it's probably about the best time to do it, I think, now.
And I'm also a bit worried about the pipes that come across a couple of the ponds, but they'll take that liability on, won't they?
Can I ask, does silt smell if it's going to be put across the wilderness? Does it smell?
There is a pond to it, it's only fair to say, and that's more due to the, excuse me, the organic matter that's within the silt, because it's not just silt, it's
So-
not just soil as such.
So if dog walkers are walking their dogs, they could just keep their dogs on the green rather than on the wilderness
It
too.
would be advised to do that.
Because the smell will go, won't it?
It
It
will
won't
indeed.
last long, will it?
Dogs will love to roll in.
Shouldn't have thought it would last. I shouldn't have thought the smell
Take
would
it
last.
home. They've got money.
And what happens if there's a fish that's squirming away on the wilderness when it's dredged? Other things, mitigating circumstances.
No, the good thing is, as they dig, the fish will go, they'll swim over the dam, and they'll be in the deep part of the water, won't they? And they'll come out. Right.
What,
I believe that's
could I
what's
just check what you meant when you said the silt will need to be gone through?
Well, if you look at the silt currently in Reed Ditch, then there are lumps of concrete like this, for example. So that's what I was getting at.
And there's
perhaps
big bits of wood
the
as well, isn't there?
bike frame as well.
That
Tesco
bike frame
trolley.
was
Removed. Graham got the bike frame off.
Oh, good man. Good man. So there will be a need to just pan for gold and sieve out bits of wood so that not damage any.
Will the contractor do any of that at source? You know, if they see huge bits of concrete, don't they just...
I wish we knew, and to a certain extent, if you think about it, if you're dredging, say, the docks at the Mersey, then they actually suck out what's there. That would be fantastic if that was to happen here, because there would be something there to stop any large items going in. But we just do not know that at this stage. I think there are a number of questions that we need to ask of the contractors, and that is one of them.
So, everybody happy?
Yes.
I'm happy, you're happy, we're happy. We can all be happy together. So therefore, we're going to, we've reviewed the report, thank you very much, and we're going to resolve to instruct the contractor to, no, we're not, we're going to, under number one, we're going to, I propose that we agree to sign the document, the grant document. Seconded by John. All those in favour, everybody. And the second item on that agenda item is to agree to instruct the contractor to spread the dredge materials cost TBC. Well, they're not going to charge us, are they? Because it's...
No, this is the, so we're talking about having a muck spreader, hiring a muck spreader to spread, so they will pile this up in the wilderness.
Mhm.
They're not going to spread it.
Okay. Sorry, that's caught me out again because it's not in the report. You didn't know that. So,
It's somewhere I read
I-
it. There's a
so
calculation
in
about
your
hourly rate.
in your supporting document.
okay, yeah.
Next page.
Yeah.
£40 an hour, isn't it?
And it would give us somewhere a cost of £1,000.
Will the grant cover that?
It's not included.
It's not included. So that's the cost given to the council.
But the benefit, cost-benefit analysis, is that it would potentially reduce the potential, the threat risk, flood risk. So and that, if it was last done in the 1990s, that's 20 years, so you're talking £50 a year. Or so. So,
That would, I presume, have to come out of reserve.
would have to come.
Yeah, so you've got a little bit left in your green open spaces budget, so that could go towards it, but it wouldn't cover the £4,000.
Can I say, somehow, this is a benefit to the village?
That's where it gets as infrastructure.
Could do, couldn't it? Because it is part of our infrastructure in the village, isn't it? Yeah. Okay. And if not, we'll have to take it from reserves. Means no mince pies this year. Never have any mince pies. No.
Not coming.
So the art there is to agree to instruct a contractor to spread the dredge materials, cost perhaps £1,000. I proposed it, sorry, yes. Sarah seconded it. All those in favour? That's it. Okay. Right. Thank you, and thank you all for your efforts on that. And I'm talking to Nicola and Ian particularly. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the... Good night, Ian. Apologies.
Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed for all that.
Thank you.
It's
Thank you.
nice to see. Thank
The next item is the dignity of work policy. We spoke about this at a previous meeting as we'd signed a pledge to be dignified.
Civility and respect.
Civility and respect pledge that involves in another policy coming in. And this policy is called dignity of work policy. Policy group met and recommended that this document is the one that we would adopt.
It's very good.
It is very, very good. Takes the humour out of life. So, yeah, I propose that we adopt that policy. Seconded. All those in favour? Okay. And the next item. Right, here we go. LHI bits. The first one is about. So we put in a bid and were approved for reducing the speed limit across the green to the end of the village there from 40 to 30. And then we have been advised by Cambridge County Council that maybe the police won't agree to that. So the police feel that it won't be a deterrent, and we are being asked to take one of two options, I believe. One is to drop the request, and the second is to say, yes, we'd still like that.
You could amend the request to the length, so the length of the 30 mile an hour could change.
Oh, to shorten it.
To shorten the length of the 30 mile an hour.
Or we can say, actually, we would like the 30 mile an hour to the end of the village, as we have proposed, and we wait to see if the police object, and if the police object, we ask parishioners to write to the police asking complaint that they object.
Well, if the police object and several parishioners write to the county council in favour, then it is a delegated decision by an officer in the same way that the weight limit was,
When there was a...
because there was an objection. So the police's objection would then go to that decision meeting, and the officer would have the decision-making power.
I can see an advantage, actually, I think, to the slightly shortened 30 limit, because it then gives you a buffer zone, which is a speed deterrent, where psychologically you see a 40 sign, and then you drive a bit further, and then you see a 30 sign, so it's kind of like your second warning. So I think that would actually be quite effective. So the downside then is the area between where the 30 sign ends up being agreed to be and where the 40 starts. Now, interestingly, on the way in there, the 40 is actually round the corner. So if you're driving in, I'd be impressed if you could maintain a speed of 40 round the corner, because I think you actually naturally drop down to 30 or under to get round the 90-degree bend. So that would be a great point to have, like, the 30 sign, as you're already doing 30, so you'd have to accelerate
To hit 40.
Yeah.
So one of the reasons this was requested was there was an accident down there, wasn't there, where the road narrows, and so it was asked whether the 30 mile an hour could go out to that point so that it was... I propose about
The
here.
question would be what the length of the buffer zone would be then.
So we're talking about here somewhere.
So the 40 is just round that bend, isn't it?
This way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is probably what they're putting Ellsworth, isn't it? Is that what they're putting Ellsworth? The 40 mile an hour
Yeah.
buffer, so then going to 30
Yeah.
as you go on.
But haven't in this one, is that when you come down the
Hang on,
hill?
yeah.
Down the hill.
Andy's got
And
his
then
hand up.
when you go,
We'll ask.
Well,
when
they've
you
got speed
go-
bumps, haven't they?
they've got speed bumps
Yeah,
as you
just
go
go
round,
towards the
which
school.
helps the buffer.
Yeah, it's very good, that actually
But,
works.
and we haven't applied for speed bumps.
No.
So there isn't a physical buffer
No.
deterrent, is there?
And there's
Like
no
Ellsworth.
gated split, stamped entrances.
Yeah.
I'm going to close the parish council meeting. Invite Andy to say.
It's only a quick comment, Peter. Do I remember rightly when the LHI bid was made, the police were consulted and they didn't object?
Correct.
They
That's
said it
right.
probably wasn't going to be effective, but they said, we
Yeah.
probably don't object.
Yeah.
So,
I
so
think
they've changed their
it's-
minds. Is that effectively what you're saying?
What did they say? The traffic management officer is not supportive of it and said that speed data supports retention of 40 mile an hour limit. So, I think, thank you, Andy. We'll
Okay,
come back
thank
to the
you.
parish council meeting. I would think we just go ahead and say we want it as it was proposed, because if we start fiddling around with it, they get, and it's fine, it's a good idea, but there are no other speed restrictions. You come to that thing, it says 30, it says 30. We don't expect the police to come and enforce it, because they may do on the odd day, but if you see a sign that says 30, you're probably going to slow down a bit towards it, aren't you? As you go round that corner and through that narrow bit. And I believe that there was going to be a roundel as well on the road.
You're talking about a roundel on that corner, but
Yeah.
not across the green.
Yeah. So,
Peter, can I just check?
yes.
Is it that is the TMO from Cambridge County Council, is the TMO the police person?
Police officer,
Police person.
police traffic management
So the
officer.
email came from the Cambridge County Council?
Project officer.
Who
I've
has
had
spoken
consultation.
with the police. So
But not the same police
she's
person,
done an
police
informal
officer.
consultation with the police at this point before the formal consultation was advertised, and they will respond formally to that.
So, I hear what you say, Rob. I would suggest we just ask them to continue as per the LHI bid. And if there is an objection, we go out to the village and say, please, write in.
Could we get if that happens during the feasibility phase?
No, that's not. That's the consultation phase. We're in the feasibility phase now.
Oh, right.
So then the
But
consultation
is there an
phase.
opportunity for us to go, all right, then we'll just have a slightly shorter.
No, because the consultation, you actually specify with a map to say this is what is being proposed.
So, if I remember rightly, we went through the feasibility consultation, and then they came out and said, yes, we're happy to do it, but we've got to open it out for objections objections or letters of support over a period of time.
There's a statutory consultation period that has to be met, and it has to go in local newspapers and so on and so forth.
Yeah, so at that point we then... So, everybody happy? Happy? All right, then so I would propose that we ask Cambridge County Council to continue with our proposed LHI bid for reducing the speed limit on the green to 30 miles an hour. Down there, on that road. Seconded, all in favour?
Can we also remind them in response to that communication they've given that the police were fined during the consultation or whatever the first phase?
I can talk to Karen about it. They
Right.
still have the option to respond as they please during a formal consultation.
Right, the next item on the agenda is the proposed LHI bid that we had put together. We had two strands to that LHI bid. One was to apply for improved signage at the Shilper end of the village and on the Papworth bypass to draw attention to vehicles that there is a 7.5 tonne weight limit ban in Hilton now, and the second part of it was to go for the raised table. We've heard parishioners' comments about the raised table, supported by his stats on speeding through the village. Well, the other thing we have to consider as well is that the cost of the raised table has increased considerably since it was considered. Yeah.
How did that come about?
Cost of living crisis,
Well,
Materials cost.
fuel poverty.
Materials cost things from 11,000 to
Well,
35,000.
11 was the middle of the road, wasn't it? The original, the estimate when we looked at it before was between 9 and 14, and now it says 35.
So-
the website that's been updated.
We were proposing that if the LHI bid were for the raised table at up to 14,000.
That was for the two combined.
Two
11
combined.
and a half, and then 2.
And we were going to put in, as a parish council, we were considering we would need to raise
1320, I think.
1320. So now, if the cost of a doodah is 35,000, we'd need to at least raise 3.5.
I would just point out
No,
that
you need 10. Because
10,000.
they will only contribute up to 25.
Yeah,
so
thank
it's
you.
35, you've got to contribute 10.
10. So we
Plus the contribution for the simple
however,
beacon.
I noticed two things. In their section, the new section on speed tables, in the old one they used to have a small speed table and a large speed table. They've now basically only got a large speed table, which is 6 metres wide. So I would argue only 2 metres, so it should be a third of the cost of what
It
they're...
certainly won't be a third.
So I would
materials.
suggest that at the moment the LHI bid that we were going to put forward for the table is scuppered, because unfortunately it's not what we put out to the parish in our consultation and feedback practices, and suddenly we would have to find £10,000, and at the moment should we raise precept in next year by £10,000 to pay for something that we don't know people would support. So, quick win, submit the LHI for the improved signage, and then do more work on this to look at what the cost will actually be, how much, where we would get a contribution from the parish council to cover it, and is it what we want? Claire?
And the road markings not very good, are they, by the Zebra crossing?
They're pretty poor.
And how much does it cost to just put that back in, because it seems to be, it's easy to ignore that zebra crossing at the moment.
They promised that it will be done by December. They have promised that it's going to be done by December.
It's been reported by several parishioners.
And I've got something to say in councillors' items as well, but that's a slightly different thing.
Do we need to reconvene the LHI group to look at all of this, because it's now simple and complex plans,
Yeah.
and it's just, they've changed the whole ball game.
They have.
They have.
But can we proceed with LHI bid for the 1198 speed weight limit? And I think we should, because that was and is the most important part of this. The next bit we have to, because if Cambridge County Council came out and said 20 mile an hour, yes, here's our scheme, you can have it. You've got your speed reduction scheme.
Got till January.
Yeah, we've got time for another LHI meeting.
And I know there are comments made about the speeding as you come out of the village around that corner. How do you defer that? I mean, you've got effectively a blind corner and a junction, so that would need a different kettle of fish. And we've spoken to CCC before on this, I have, and when we talked about putting the potentiality of putting a roundabout in the Crossfarm Close, Gravy Way, and we talked about, and you've got a blind corner coming in there as well. So it might mean that it has to be a longer consultation and discussion on that bit, I think, to make sure it gets right and to get, full support.
But push through the signage
Yeah,
now
yeah.
as part of this one.
Well, no, I'm suggesting that we wait, because we haven't got to do it till the 6th of January, so we would have time to have an LHI meeting and just look at the different options and make sure we're deciding and bring it back to the December meeting.
Yeah, as long as we don't drop the HGV signage, fine. Because that is, it's a simple, quick win, isn't it? It needs more. It needs one of those big blue signs.
Yeah, I think that's it, yeah, definitely.
Because how much is that costing?
The estimate was
No,
2,200.
sorry, for our contribution.
It would be 10%.
Right.
220 quid.
Yeah. Yes, so
Not
it's
really.
But the
10%.
sign's still the same price.
That's the estimate that I had. They've probably gone up. Yeah. So I'll
Cynical,
probably
Rob,
have to go
cynical.
back to the project officer and get an updated quote on that. But yeah, £2,200 is what I was told 6 months ago when we started this discussion.
Just
But everybody's suffering in all sorts of different ways. So,
The longer you leave it, the more expensive it's going to be. Honest.
Yeah, but we'll have growth, so we'll have loads of them.
all right. So the bid. So here's a proposal that we can vote on: is that the LHI bid for the raised zebra crossing is taken away to be discussed further and represented to the parish council at a future meeting, perhaps December. But in the meantime, the application can start to be processed for the signage, so that come what may, that bit can go through, and if the other bit comes back and can be agreed, then it can be added in. Or it can be...
You can't submit a simple and a complex. So if you submit the simple
That's me.
for the signage, you
Yeah.
can't then submit a complex as well for the raised crossing.
But we can do that another year.
But you could do it another year.
Or another group that submit one and we can submit the other, so you can. It doesn't have to be a parish council signature yet. So we do have that option to do both.
use an
Yeah.
LHI.
I think if you want to do a complex bid, you're going to have to take more than a month or 2 months to get that together out to the village. This is what we're going to spend the money on. How we need to get the money, where and how we package it together to come up with £10,000 for something that 20 people said they wanted in that survey.
I
Yeah.
I don't disagree with you, but I think it's worth, as we've got time, just to have a
Okay, well, I'm happy with
discussion
it.
on it.
I'm quite happy to discuss. All right, we'll bump the whole lot till next meeting.
I'd like to vote on that.
Yeah, are you happy with that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I propose that we bump that to the next meeting. Seconded, all in favour? Right. Health Inequalities Project. So, to consider and approve the draft survey to be sent. And the cost of £184, published on the website, linked to Facebook and sent to the next day. And the next item on the agenda is to approve the payment of the clerk's overtime in respect to Health Inequalities Project. Cost of the council £97.64, but it's not, is it? Because it's ring-fenced to the money that you've got in as a separate. I just wanted to make out that the £280 odd spend is coming out of the money that's received of £2,500. It is not the parish council's
Yes.
core money. It's ring-fenced money. Got that bit done?
Yeah. The reason it's referred to as cost to council is because I'm not getting paid £97.64. That's your national insurance contributions, pension contributions, all in. So that's your total cost, but it's not my take-home.
Yeah. But the £97.64 is coming out of that money.
Yes.
It's not coming out of the precepted income expenditure. Right, and so we have, and you had a little group, met, and came up with a survey.
Yes.
And, oh, it's not the survey. Sorry. Sorry. I haven't got the right package. That's all to do with. Hilton questionnaire, VT. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been round the houses a couple of times.
Hasn't come to our house?
No, not yet. Round the group.
Round the group.
For
And has the group who are involved in drawing up, are you all happy with the leaflet?
yes.
Because otherwise it wouldn't be on the
Otherwise it
agenda.
wouldn't.
And when would you put it out? Excuse me.
As soon as possible, because the deadline is Friday the 25th for return.
Yeah. So, proposal one is to approve the survey to be sent to all properties in Hilton, published on the website and linked to Facebook and consider the next steps in the project.
Has it been delivered?
Taxes paid?
Can we pay somebody? Can we
Yeah.
pay somebody to deliver it out of the project?
Potentially.
A teenager?
Yeah, find a teenager. That will delay the delivery while I find someone to deliver it.
When would you get it?
I would hope to have it by the end of this week. They're quite quick. I place the order tomorrow. I would hope that I'd have it by the end of this week. So potentially we could be looking at delivery at the weekend, which then gives people 2 weeks to
How many zones? 6?
6 zones.
If anybody would like to help in delivering it, I'll do so.
I'm just thinking, in cash-strapped times, there might be some people in the village who would appreciate £30–40 to deliver to all the houses.
That would have to be.
Well, it'd be national insurance and everything else.
Yeah.
Oh, it's too complicated.
It's just,
Sorry, we'll do it to ourselves.
so, I propose that we approve that. Seconded by Sarah. All those in favour? And then the next item, which is to approve payment of the £97.64. I propose we approve that. Seconded by Claire. Everybody's in favour. Thank you very much. Good. Next item, Pavilion Working Group, to agree the specifications for work in 2 stages with drawings. Pavilion Group did meet. You'll be pleased to know, and in your supporting documents, are the plans. And if it opens, go on. 2 plans, one pre, one post. And the spec has been drawn up, which now has to go out to the, whatever you call it, Central Contracts
Contracts finder.
Contracts Finder. So that's the next stage. you'll see that it's been split into two. One, renovation specifications, covers most of the work. The second part is just a little bit of work that isn't essential, but would be nice to look. But again, it depends how much the renovations might cost, given that things have gone up. So we won't know until we get that. So does anybody have any queries regarding the specifications of work in 2 stages with drawings? In that case, I would propose that we agree the specifications of work in 2 stages with drawings. Seconded by Sarah. Everybody in favour? Thank you. The next item is to authorise the clerk to obtain quotes through the contracts process. I propose that we authorise the clerk to, everybody. And then the next one is to authorise the clerk to prepare the grant application pack for FCC for the March grant deadline. We looked at this grants that is out there, and it comes up 4 times a year. And so we thought that by the time this came back from the contracts process, it would give Nicola a chance to have Christmas and to, because it's not a small grant application. And it would also allow us to bring it back to council when we've got the actual figures. If the figures are shockingly high, then that allows a little bit more chance of discussion. So, everybody happy with that? Okay. Propose that we authorise the clerk to prepare the application for March grant deadline, providing the quotes are received. Seconded, and all in favour? Right. Consider and decide upon the request from a parishioner to extend the curbstone along the verge path outside Dunadry, and refurbish the gravel path at their cost. So, you've got little pictures that are looking one way, and then a picture looking the other way. And the other way suggests that when the building work was done, the side of the verge there was not restored. And they are happy to do some work along there to extend the curbstone down so there's a hard curb, which is, I would assume, would have to be agreed by Cambridge County Council. Yeah. But they're happy to do it. And then they would like to add in the gravel path to infill that bit there. So, any comments?
I think it's a great idea.
Very good. I don't think it's very nice that they're going to pay for it too.
But I didn't know if it was, I mean, obviously we can say, yes, we'd like you to do it, but it has to all go through, like you've just said, the highways and planning, and it's not for us to say, go ahead and do it.
No, but technically it's making changes to our land, parish council's land,
Okay.
so that's why he's come here first.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you could put in your resolution subject to
Yeah.
necessary permissions being obtained from
Okay.
county council and district council.
Yeah. So, because from what I read, it is extending that curb up to the side of their entrance, yeah? The curb, and then putting gravel in to tidy it up. Which would
And you
make
could
it
specify that you want the same pea gravel that is found on the rest of the pathways.
good.
Yeah.
Very good. So, happy with that? Yeah? So, what we're going to propose, we propose that we say to the parishioner, yes please, but do bear in mind that you might probably have to get highways permission to put a curb in and put pea gravel down, please. Pea gravel, please. Yeah? Happy with that? I propose that. Seconded by Sarah. Everybody in favour? Next, Anglian Water, is it? Yes. So Anglian Water are going to build 2 reservoirs. And we, to consider and decide upon a response to the current Anglian Water reservoir consultation. So,
It's in Chatters, do we need to respond?
exactly, that is one thing that you could consider, is that it's Or we could consider saying, yes, please. We could reply saying, yes, please.
Great idea.
Yeah. Why haven't you done it sooner? What do you think, Nicola? Do we need to respond?
That would be a decision for the council,
Okay.
but I would consider the waste of money in my time spent on it.
Can't afford it.
But anybody feel we need to respond? Put tuppence in? In that case, I will propose that we don't submit a response. Seconded by Rob. All those in favour? Next one is to consider and decide upon the response to the current Greater Cambridge Partnership Making Connections 2022 consultation, which we should reply to, shouldn't we?
Yes. Yes, it's very general, isn't it?
It is very general.
It's not offering anything specific that we can get our teeth into. It's generally on the right lines.
Invited everyone living in Greater Cambridge. In Greater Cambridge? I thought we lived in Huntingdonshire.
So there's a survey we have to complete, is
Yeah.
that how I...
So, it's one of these online consultations, and normally what we've done with an online consultation before is a counsellor, sometimes me, and Nicola sit down on a Zoom call and fill it out. Has anybody got a great urge to be involved in making their response on the Making Connections consultation?
I'm happy to be involved, but no.
Deserted. You're the person that's spoken up, Rob, in case you hadn't noticed.
I think you sort of suggested you could do it.
When's it got to be done? Monday the
I don't
17th of October to Friday the 23rd of December, midday. Our comments would be from Hilton, is just like a better bus service, really.
And
More-
cycle NMUs.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because that's
Yeah.
in the background, not being done. So, if you're happy, that would be the sort of response we'd give. Rob, me and Nicola could do it.
So the resolution, the draft resolution I have here is to delegate the response to this consultation to the clerk, because you can only delegate decision making to an officer in consultation with Councillor Dalston and Councillor Lee.
Happy with that?
Yeah.
I propose that then. Seconded and favoured, thank you.
Thank you both.
Next, Hilton Summer Ball Committee have asked to hold an event on the 21st of July, Friday the 21st of July. If I remember correctly from the last Parish Council meeting, Feast Week are looking to run from the Monday of the following week. The proposal was for...
Sunday.
Was it? Was the marquee was
will
going
go
up
on
on
Monday,
Monday?
but Feast Week starts on the Sunday.
So the marquee would therefore need to go up earlier?
Yeah.
Doesn't say when it would go up, does it?
It's
There's
a
a
Wednesday.
document.
Oh, it's, yeah, you see, I was looking at
Tuesday or Wednesday.
Tuesday or Wednesday, 19th of July. Marquee's been up for 2 weeks in previous times. I think that they've done their own fundraising to be able to be in a position to do so. Does anybody have any objections? And if not, I will propose that we agree to the request from the Hilton Summer Ball Committee. Second, yep, there you go. Next item on the agenda, number 177, to consider and decide upon the suggestion that Hilton Parish Council purchase a thermal imaging camera to help residents identify the best approach for installation, and other mitigation. Cost £582.50. So this was a parishioner who has recently attended a Huntingdonshire Reducing Energy and Waste focus group where another participant was a local parish councillor who had said that they had bought a thermal imaging camera and wondered whether there was something we could consider in Hilton Parish Council. So my immediate thought on this was, why buy? Why not say, if there are a sufficient number of villagers who would like to get together and share the cost of hiring one, we could coordinate and they could contribute and you could hire for the cost of.
Yeah. So it's a really good resolution. There are lots of rogue people going around offering insulation, and I think people should be aware that there are people who are very pressurising salesmen who are not necessarily selling you a product that's going to do you any good.
No.
So getting some independent advice and having a look is important. But I mean, I think, you know, if you bought one for the village, it's not really helping the people who are really needy, because the people who are really needy can't afford to put the insulation in, can they? So, you know, the only thing that it did occur to me that maybe the town trust would, but then I thought that actually the town trust should just give money to people rather than to machines. So I think your suggestion is a very good one.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that would be immediately useful, but then
In a cupboard.
it would
Yes.
take that information
Yeah.
away and
Yeah.
fix the problem. So I think it would be that valuable.
Yeah.
So renting one for a week or two
Maybe from
and
Buckingham.
offering.
I was just going to say, well, it can't be running else from them.
Yeah. Providing we got enough people who wanted to do it and were prepared to cover the cost of renting it.
Yeah.
Because if there was a large number of people that wanted to do so, the cost would be small.
So
Good.
do we leave it up
There we
to
go.
the
There's a
parishioners to
resolution
do?
then.
Yeah.
There's a resolution. So unfortunately, Nicola, just need a little bit of work. Okay. So the resolution is.
Hang on before you...
Yeah.
Does it need a bit of work, or can we say, Doctor are doing this because a group of parishioners would like to do it, we can put the contact details out to them?
Could this parishioner not coordinate it? Who's obviously quite interested in it. Does it
Hand
have
from
to
the
come
floor.
from the parish council?
I am that parishioner,
I don't.
so I can answer your question.
Mention names.
GDPR.
Yeah.
I don't mind. I'm freely admitting that I'm that parishioner. It was Buckton Parish Council have bought one, and they get good continued use out of it. The point being that it's equitable across the village. Then the people that probably do need it, regardless of what you say, poor insulation. There are going to be lots of grants coming, I can tell you, in the next year for insulation. That's a big prime focus for the most efficient way of saving money. So, but people just don't know where it is, where they need it. So they get a lot of use across there. I don't know how many 100 houses
It would
they've
be
got.
very helpful for the village if we did actually manage to get some good advice on what kind of insulation to have. I know from personal experience, somebody has actually forced their way literally virtually into our house to try and sell us a product.
Totally agree, Claire, but be pre-warned. So having me looking at my house or a house and saying, actually, look, that door's leaking horribly and I could do with some more roof insulation or whatever it might be.
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
So, and I'd be in for 50 quid or whatever to...
But does that help those that maybe can't put their 50 quid in? That's really the point, those that can afford to maybe can,
but
but
I mean,
it's probably
if
as
you
beneficial
find-
to those that
If
can't.
you can find another 10 people like me, then we bought one for the village, so...
It's possible, yeah. Who owns it then?
So why don't we put out, first of all, a proposal that if you want to use a thermal imaging camera on your property, we will do a collective, a cooperative, to rent one. Contribute,
Or buy one.
use it, or buy one if there's sufficient, and see what the response is from the village. Because I think, if you think you need insulation on your house, you'll get it. You don't need a thermal imaging camera to say, oh, I need to get loft insulation, because you know you want to put it in. If you want to put your cavity walls insulated, you don't need a thermal imaging camera to say, oh, our cavity walls in, you'll put it in. If you think your windows are leaking, you'll get replacement windows. You don't need a thermal imaging camera to tell
What we
you.
need is a reputable company and a proper product.
Yeah, but the district council and the county council will run schemes again that will promote. Yeah, so for solar, Cambridge County Council do a really good scheme where you can join in their bidding scheme and they go out and they do an auction across a number of companies and they choose preferred people. So you know that those people are the preferred ones. Now, when we had our loft and our cavity walls insulated, that was through a similar scheme. So we knew that the people that were being used were reputable. And there will be other grants and schemes issued. And what we need to do as a parish council is look for those schemes and promote them
Yeah.
across our...
It definitely needs to be.
Spreading information around, yeah, totally approved.
Yeah.
But just going back to the point, I think I'd still be interested, although I think I know what needs to be done, more insulation, and hoping to upgrade the double glazing and stuff. So I'd still like to get one of those cameras to know if there's some bits that I don't know about, or it's actually leaking through my walls, which I thought were insulated fine. So
Yeah.
I see
So-
the value in
You could buy
So-
one, Rob, and you could lend it out.
Yeah.
You could make your money back.
I guess I'll
Rob, if the snow melts on your roof before other people around you, you probably need
That's the
better
roof.
insulation. But we haven't got a budget to spend
Yeah, no,
£550
I disagree,
on a
so-
thermal imaging camera. So, and yes, there may be a use for one within the village. So there is that's a possible way of doing it, is to say, would you be interested? Do you want to use a thermal imaging camera? If you do, let us know. And we will arrange to hire one on the basis that the people who are interested in using it will split the cost.
Jewson, £60, £61 a day plus that.
Oh,
Weekend, £86, 36 plus that.
perfect.
But that's per house probably, isn't it?
That's per
Yeah.
person.
No, rental.
That's
The
rental.
piece of equipment
Yeah.
from Jewson for a weekend, £103.63 including that. Okay.
Thank you very much.
So could the parish council support a weekend's worth, and then as many people as possible can make use of it?
Well, so my observation is that it's not in the budget, so then we'd have to, and what is the statutory responsibility of the parish council to be funding? So I guess that would be,
So the proposal is that the parish council will advertise. If there are parishioners who would like to use a thermal imaging camera, they come to the parish council and we will arrange to hire one with the cost being split over by those people who wish to use it. I think that's what
I
I said.
have slightly shortened that. To advertise that the parish council, the parish council will advertise that if there is interest, they will organise a cooperative project for parishioners to hire a camera at their cost.
At their cost.
At the parishioners'
Because I
cost.
would like to add in there, if you can't afford it, we'll ask the town, let us know, and we'll try and arrange the town trust to give some money to cover that part of it. But if you give people an option to say, I can't afford it, surprisingly, they won't be able to afford it. If they want it, they will want to pay for it, or they'll be happy to pay for it. I would have thought if it is reduced down to £20 for you to use a machine over a weekend. We don't know until we try it. We haven't got the money to buy one.
Good.
I don't know.
I don't know,
Just the
if
point
you
of asking.
putting the information out there, I think people would not necessarily know that you could hire it, they wouldn't necessarily know
Yeah.
that, you know, so it's good that the parish council has the information from Andy, who can pass that on to other people, but they can organise it themselves. You don't actually have to have us organising it for them, just they need to know it.
Yeah.
Would be my point.
Yeah, clear. But I think in the first instance we could.
Yeah.
And then, you know, if there was a demand which outstripped the need to hire it for a weekend,
That's fine, I have no
then
objections.
one can say goodbye if there's enough people. willing to-
£148 for the week,
£148 for the week.
including your VAT.
And I think if we could put the option in that the town trust would help in some way, if we can't afford it, it's meeting all the needs, isn't it?
But we don't know whether the town
You
trust
can't
will.
promise the town
No,
trust.
surely if it was hired in by a certain amount of people, surely we could allow other people to use it that can't afford it.
Indeed, Sarah.
So-
Indeed. So let's just go with the proposal one, which is we'll advertise. If you'd like to use one, contact us, and we'll do it on a cooperative scheme of people will cover the cost of hiring. Is everybody happy with that?
Yeah.
Thank you. Claire's happy. She's seconded that proposal already. Everybody in favour? Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Andy.
Okay, good.
Right, the next item on the agenda, which is the last one on this page, is to consider and decide upon the request that the gravel on the village hall car park is restored to remove the heap of gravel in the main entrance. So a parishioner has written in and said that it's, there's a mound of gravel on one way, yeah? On one end.
As you approach from Ford and come in, it's almost like a speed bump.
Okay. So, question 1 is, would the village maintenance person move it? Question 2 is, would the village maintenance person do it if he had a band of extra volunteers to help move it?
It's quite a lot of gravel, but I think it's shuttleable.
But it would take a couple of hours by a group of people.
Peanuts, we could do that. We don't want hard stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So what we're going to propose is we ask the village maintenance person if they do it, or whether he'd like some assistance, and agree a date and come and do it.
Does it need more gravel? Is there going to be cost involved?
No, it's just
No, I
spread
think
what's
it's just
there.
redistributing the gravel.
It's redistributing what's there. So that's the proposal. Seconded. Everybody happy? Thank you. Right, the next item is to, don't say who, but thank the parishioner who has been watering the new trees through the summer to make sure that they have a chance of survival. So the proposal is to thank that parishioner, seconded by Claire. Everybody's in favour? Good. Next item is to receive financial reports, which you have in your supporting documents. Any questions on the financial reports? I think we could say now, couldn't we, that the fireworks were a big success. And
Provisionally, the takings were 2,600 and change, and that the provisional profit is £989.
there's a little bit of adjustment to do for handling cash.
Yeah, the Unity Trust will charge you for handling cash, and I don't have that confirmed yet. Well, so provisionally, if my estimations are correct on what they're going to charge, £989 in profit.
Which is great, because as we were just talking about, the firework money is ring-fenced from the precept money, and the profit that comes in allows the fireworks to continue. When we, just a little bit of history, when we went a few years back, the fireworks would lose money 1 year, and we'd reduce the amount that was spent on the fireworks, and then it would make money, so we'd increase the amount that was spent on the fireworks, so we'd lose money, so we'd reduce the amount. We had this donation which was spread over 5 years, which allowed profits to be taken off, so that it allowed the fireworks to be kept at a similar level that you saw on Saturday, going forward for at least another 5-7 years or something now. So that's really good. It's worked well. And thank you. I'm going to mention that in the last bit. Okay, so everybody's happy with the money, financial reports, and the next item on the agenda is we've received the £2,500 for the Health Inequalities Project, initial payment of which we've spent some money and can spend a little bit more. And then you have the items on the schedule to be paid, which is green maintenance 525, the other side of the green maintenance, which is £208.34, which is the things like the village garden.
Does the churchyard, the village garden and the ditch work?
£45 for ecotricity, £1,552.62 for payroll, and there's a little bit more that comes into that, but that's included in that amount,
Yeah,
and we cover that under number 184, because they've been a long outstanding. It was the pay award to April this year.
April this year,
Yeah.
yeah, so we're actually caught up now, so whether they can get next year's award in before that next financial year.
Opus lighting for street lights, or Opus electricity for street lighting, £142.36, Microsoft Office package 1128, SLCC GDR e-course £36, SLCC GDPR policies webinar £36, and 68p postage. Is that the price of a first class?
No, the price of a second class.
Is it really? Goodness me, no wonder the Royal Mail's in trouble. So we have to propose to approve those payments. I propose that we approve those payments. Seconded, and all in favour. number 183 is that the quarterly bank reconciliation has been conducted by a member other than the chairman. Thank you. Councillor Capes for doing that. No reported discrepancies.
You just need to note that by resolution.
Indeed, we note by resolution that the quarterly bank reconciliation has been conducted by Councillor Capes, and there were no reported discrepancies. Proposed, seconded, thirded, fifth, sixth. Well done. Thank you. The next item is this. So the 2022-2023 NALC Salary Award, which is the National Pay Award for public employees.
It's
In
for
your role?
local government staff, support staff in schools. It covers quite a lot of different roles.
Yes.
But yes, this pay award has been agreed by the main unions and the national employers.
And we always see that it comes in, not in for the year that it was agreed for. So we have seen that. So that it's involved.
Historically, they've done like a 3-year pay award, which means you could then actually budget properly. They haven't done that for several years.
No. So that's a back pay of £491.73p, which includes national insurance and the pension contribution. We've just voted that it's going to be paid, so there you go.
It was noted by resolution.
They'll be paying it.
Yeah, you just noted the
Oh,
salary.
so we note that. I propose that we note it. Agreed. Seconded. There we go. Is that all right? Is that?
Lovely.
Yeah. The next item is council's items only. Right. Oh yes, information only. No discussion, no debate, no comment, no point. Rob.
From me.
Claire.
No, I don't think so. I think I did promises.
Emma. Sarah said no.
Yes, I looked at the Highway and Transport meeting minutes and was intrigued to note that the non-motorised route, the cycle path, proposed between Hilton and Penstanton, is still listed on the County Council's notes for their budget. I'm not going to query it with them because I just wanted to be careful.
He would, Doug was talking to somebody about it, but one day, we've still got the money. No discussion.
Okay, thank you.
What have I got? 2. I had an email today from somebody asking me, as a person who had been involved in representing the village on the A14. It's a National Highways evaluation of the upgrade of the A14 Southern Bypass and local roads, asking me whether I would be prepared to speak or go through with one of their team a discussion, 60 minutes, sometime between today and Friday the 2nd of December. So I'm going to go and talk, and I will let you know that I would say on behalf of the village that we were disappointed in the lack of mitigation that was given, that it was only what was in the book, and that if you come to Hilton, the noise is there for everybody to hear, and asked them when they were going to come and re-monitor noise levels. I was going to talk about the 1040, how as it was a diversion route for traffic, the state of the road surface is a mess, and why they haven't come to resurface that. And I was also going to mention the legacy fund pond wall that we said we weren't prepared to sign, we weren't happy to sign it off until it had rained. And it has rained, and there was water build-up, and Yarrick seems to have not talked to us anymore. So those were the things I was going to go back and say. It's basically, with the mitigation, it's what we asked for all the time throughout the consultations was improved mitigation against noise. And they only, highways, the people who built it, Highways England, only did what was in the book of road building, which was minimal. So that's all I'd say, and I'd invite them to come and meet me in the village so they can hear noise levels. So there's that one, and the other thing I just wanted to say was Firework Committee. Thank you. What a great night. So nice to see so many people in the village out, enjoying themselves. And I know that, good comments, Claire. We've not done it before, but it worked really well, and it was very nice. It was a great evening, and thank you very much. And I hope the clerk will write to the firework people as well, saying thank you very much to them, because the lad who did it, once again, did a great job. And all for the same amount as we've had in previous years. Thus ended the open session of the County Council. There is one item which Nicola's recommended we should do in private because it is
Likely to disclose incorrect information.
then,
So you just need to do that by resolution.